This is Battleground PA, a PennLive podcast discussing the issues that matter to Pennsylvanians and documenting the events in the Keystone State and beyond that could shape how you vote in the 2024 elections.
Well, hello again, everyone. This is Joyce Davis. I'm PennLive's Outreach and Opinion Editor, and this is Battleground PA. We have a lot to talk about today because this is just after that monumental showdown between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, who is trying to get into the White House. And I am just so pleased to tell you, first, that we have our standby Jeffrey Lord, our Republican pundit, who's here with us, waving his hand just like Reagan behind him. And we also have a young lady who really is making a mark for herself in the field of journalism already, and she's still in high school. Aarushi Dedhiya is here with us. Aarushi, hello.
Hello, nice to thank you for having me.
That's all right. No, it's great to have you here. But the reason we asked Aarushi to be here with us is because she got credentials to go as a journalist to the debate, and she was in the room where all of the senators and governors and all of those people were there. They call it the spin room, where she was able to really absorb that kind of, I know it had to be an electric atmosphere there as this historic moment was happening in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So what we're going to do is first turn, and I want everybody to know that Aarushi is PennLive's youth columnist. She writes something called Youth View, and she's a former intern, summer intern with the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg and PennLive. We have that joint partnership going. But Aarushi, we're going to turn it over to you because we want to hear, what was it like? Why did you decide you wanted to be there in person, even though there was no audience? Just tell us everything you can about what happened last night.
Well, the atmosphere was definitely something to look for. There were a lot of journalists from all across the country and also the world. Like, people came from Europe and South America, and it was just it was a very interesting atmosphere seeing all these different perspectives, especially like the worldwide perspectives on both candidates' views. And I was just very interested because I'm very interested in politics and government. And obviously the presidential election is monumental, especially since these two candidates, one is the vice president currently, and the other one is a former president. So it was just very interesting to see this happen. And also, this is their first debate. So expect this is going to be a very big part of both of their campaigns.
Absolutely. How many we saw the room they were in. I was just watching it from television, so we saw the room, and I think where you were in the spin room was right to the side of it. Jeffrey, you weren't there, right? Do you know where that spin room?
No, I could have gone, but yeah. I want to talk to Aarushi about that because
go ahead.
Well, in the long ago and far away, I was a senior staff member in the Reagan-Bush re-election campaign in 1984. And as such, I got invited to the debate. As a matter of fact, it was in Philadelphia between then Vice President George Bush and his opponent, Congresswoman Geraldine Ferraro, who was the running mate for the Democrats, Walter Mondale. So being a senior staffer, they took good care of me. They put me about 2 rows back from the stage. I saw the whole thing from beginning to end, and I was very impressed with Vice President Bush. I thought he had done a great job. Now, here's the interesting part, Aarushi, that I would pass on to you. I walked out of there, and I'm seeing the reaction on television. It wasn't anywhere near as good for Vice President Bush as I thought. And suddenly the light went on that the reason for these two different views was, one, I was there sitting in person, and listening to anybody in person is far different than when you see and hear them on television. And I made a promise to myself after that I would never sit in person in a debate again. Now, on the other hand, the spin room is a great place to be because the candidates, if they show up after it's all over to work the room. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the televisions are all over the place, and you can just sort of isolate yourself in a corner watch it on television, and then you can get reactions from people in the media. But
And soak up the atmosphere and soak up this historic atmosphere. But
yes.
let's ask Aarushi. Aarushi, who was there? Who did you see? Did either Trump or Harris come out?
Yes, I did see Trump. I was like actually front row in that whole circle where he was coming in, and it was definitely a surprise. Like we were not expecting it, and then there was a huge barricade created just to have him come in and talk with us, and he with us for around like 5 or 6 minutes. So it was very interesting.
Wow, what did he say? Tell us.
Well, he was talking about the debate, obviously, and how he thought for him it went really well. And then many journalists were asking him about a possible re-debate, like another debate. And he didn't give a clear answer of whether or not he would agree to it because he thought that this debate went really well for him.
Okay. All right. Well, Jeffrey, let's say I do. And did you see? Well, before we go on to Jeffrey to get his impressions as well, did you see? Did Harris come out and talk?
She went to her watch party.
Mhm.
But there were Democratic senators and governors present, so I talked with them as well.
All right, so she talked to Trump and also Democratic governors and our governor was there too, Governor
Yes, I did
Shapiro.
talk with them. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, wonderful. Well, you're also on the education. You're one of the youth members on the education committee, right? From the
Yes, the State Board of Education.
State Board of
Wow.
Education. Yeah, I know. She's making a name for herself, Jeffrey. Okay, Jeffrey, come on. Let's hear what you have to say because I think Kamala won, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it could be too. I think it could
All
be
right,
too.
tell us why you think.
If I've learned anything again with these things is that these things stretch out over time, and actually what happens more often than not, and frankly, I think it's already happening, is that the debates get sort of superseded by something else in the media that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it. And just by the sheerest of chance, I think that's happening today. And the reason is because today is the 23rd anniversary of 9/11. So all of the stories about, who won, who lost, and all that kind of thing are being superseded big time by people remembering 9/11 and where they were and what happened and
I
the
think that's true.
tragedy.
I think that's true, but I'm going to tell you, I just wrote a story. It's about to hit now. That tells that this is one of the. I think this debate is going to go down as one of the most important events in the 21st century because of the repercussions of all of this and of this strong candidate now that's emerging in Kamala Harris on world politics, world events. Both Aarushi and I had to talk to Australian media because they were so intense. Everybody around the world is so focused on what's happening now in Pennsylvania. I'm telling us we're the center of the universe. I mean,
Well,
Aarushi,
that Joyce, I think I will say this, but this is really nothing to do with the debate per se. And I think it's just wonderful. We, meaning those of us who live in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, have, through a variety of reasons and circumstances, become like the dead center of the 2024 presidential campaign.
Says we're the center of the universe. Aarushi, did you get a sense last night that you were in the center of the world?
Definitely, yes. Like I said earlier, there were like people from many different countries, and they were like hitting on like the foreign point of views, like what both nominees are going to do for these countries across the world, and especially for the wars going on. So that was definitely like a hot topic, and there were journalists like speaking all these different languages because they came from different parts of the world to be here to yesterday.
It is great fun and it's very interesting. I was awakened early this morning by a call from the London Telegraph. So, we in Pennsylvania are going to be the subject of a lot of interest from now until election day, and then it'll all stop.
The world.
And what, Joyce?
Well, maybe not. It depends upon what happens. I think either way it won't stop. I think it depends upon what happens on election day. I think that's, let's see if this is okay. Are we back? Good. All right. I think it
There,
depends
that's
upon what's
better.
going to happen on election day. I don't think that the attention is not going to, I think the attention on the United States, maybe not on Pennsylvania, will continue, but we definitely have a ride ahead of us over these next few weeks. But let me turn to Rushi again. Rushi, there was some other big news that's come out. That's one of the things that I'm even being asked to talk to Australian broadcasting again. It's about now. Who is this person? Taylor something. Who
Taylor
is
Swift.
it? Yeah, Taylor Swift. Yeah, she can't. Somebody like me is a little too old to know, but somebody like you will know. But tell us, what? Who cares about Taylor Swift?
Well, I mean, she obviously like her debut of like the Eras tours has been a big topic among young people who are interested in her music. And so I don't know if you like heard the whole like Ticketmaster, the whole like thing that happened. So obviously like there are a lot of young fans that are interested, but there are also people that are not a fan of her music. And just there she is a big pop star in for young people today. And
Yeah,
uh,
I was
uh,
just joking with you. If you got to know who Taylor Swift is, right? Even though I don't know a lot about her music, I know she's apparently an influencer of big time.
yeah.
Jeffrey, 30 some thousand new voters signed up right after she endorsed. I mean, that's amazing. We couldn't pull that off, right?
Well, there's a history of this kind of thing. Arushi probably would not know this, but um, back in the early 1970s, when Richard Nixon was president, he got a visit in the Oval Office from Elvis Presley.
Oh, that had to do it. That had to
And
do it.
and you should, I mean, the picture is a classic. There is Elvis in like a white sort of
Oh,
jumpsuit with the sequins and all of that sort of stuff, and the necklace and the sunglasses and the this, that, and the other thing. And there is Richard Nixon. Not exactly the portrait of hip, and
wow.
people
Wow.
got a good laugh out of the whole thing. But for people of a certain age in 1972 who knew Elvis and were his age, that could have had effect. Nixon won in a 49 state landslide. So yeah, some of them could have been picked up by
Yeah.
that. And that's one of the functions of or one of the happenstance of celebrity in
Yeah,
our
you could
Western
influence
society.
elections, it seems. But Arushi, let me ask you this: how old are you? Are you ready to vote yet?
I'm actually not old enough this election.
How old are you?
I'm 17 right now.
So next year you'll be able to vote.
Yeah.
And so, but you do know what grade are you in?
12th grade.
Oh, so you're you're in the last year, but there are some people in your class, clearly in your year, that are 18
Yeah.
right now and can vote, right? Do you think Taylor Swift's endorsement is going to, influence them in any way at all?
I'm not 100% sure about how like about my classmates, but I know she has been a big influence on many people. Like you said about like how many voters got registered. And especially since she like in her like she gave like a post on Instagram and like all these different social media apps. So she's reaching wide audiences already with like 280 like million or more followers. So obviously that her endorsement will have a huge impact on getting people of all ages that listen to her music and like her to vote if they have not registered
Well,
already.
it certainly
And this
sent this
is
whole thing into a second day. That's because, as I say, I'm going to be interviewed with Australian broadcasting this afternoon. So they're keeping this thing going. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Sorry.
and the thing is, of course, the American electoral system will kick in as it always does. So it's not as if, and I mean, since we're talking about Taylor Swift, it's not as if she and all these kids that like her are voting. I mean, where are they? If there's huge chunks of them in California, California is probably going to vote for her anyway. If
Mm.
they're in some, like South Carolina, uh, it probably won't make a difference there for the same reason opposite.
Except I think that what I would argue is that if these are new voters, voters who would not have voted otherwise, and they simply got, because one of the things I've been hearing is that the Democrats especially needed something to be able to mobilize the young people and get them excited. And if a young candidate, which is she's 20 years younger than Trump, as well as all of these celebrities like a Taylor Swift, that's got bound to energize people. I mean, Arushi, do you see this as the catalyst that may be needed to get young people more engaged?
I would say it's definitely a factor, but obviously, one influencer can only do so much, especially for young people. But I feel like it has been a catalyst for many young people to vote, especially if they see someone that they look up to or influencer that they like, telling them that it is so important and their vote matters, then it can obviously be a large impact on the young people
There you
who.
go. Jeffrey, on your side, who's Trump pulling in to be his influences? Who does he have
You
there?
know, as someone I saw the other day that frankly really surprised me was Elton John.
Elton John. Okay, but he's in Britain, right?
He's in Britain, but he's a global celebrity, rock and roll star,
Jeffrey, I
et
think we're
cetera, et cetera.
aging ourselves again.
He apparently met Donald Trump years ago, and they've become friends and all. I mean, who knew? You know, not me.
What I'm saying is that's still really old school. We're talking about moving forward, and we're still looking back to Elton John. I mean, I'm not
Well,
saying Elton wasn't a great
actually, we're
example, but
looking back to Kamala Harris. You know, she from the
no,
past.
Kamala Harris is 20 years younger than him. She's the future. But Arushi, do you know who Elton John is?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Would he influence you?
Well, I mean, I personally don't listen to his music, but I know that a lot of my parents have listened to his music, and so like he's definitely known by young people.
Okay. All right. Well,
I just
okay.
think Joyce said
As I thought.
it can be age specific, and the youth vote is important, but so too is the senior vote.
Well, because we actually get out and actually vote. It's not a question. We will do it. All right. So let's turn to Arushi again. What else do we need to know about that historic night in Philadelphia?
Well, one of the main objectives that I tried to get out of when I interviewed different governors and senators was about like the policies that are going to affect young people in the United States, and especially regarding the public education system and healthcare. Since both candidates have very different views on how they see the future of both of those areas. So I just wanted to get a taste on those topics. So that was like one of my like goals, to see how this election may affect young people.
So you said the topics for young people that you saw are healthcare. They are the community college. Did you say, or public
No, well,
education?
like public education systems,
Okay.
K to 12.
And what about tuition? What about the all of that stuff that Biden's trying to do with tuition reimbursements and all of that? Is that
That was brought up, but it wasn't brought up as much as what well, I feel like that was one of the big points, especially about like student loans. So
yes.
that was definitely a controversial topic between both sides, since they have both opposing views. But also there was like big topics about immigration and all these other different topics, especially healthcare, since Kamala Harris wants the healthcare for all, but like Trump wants to take away the Affordable Care Act.
Mhm.
So it was just like trying to understand what the future is going to be like if this happens, and how they foresee a better future in going with their policies.
Right. Well, Jeffrey, I was a little surprised. Actually, it looks like former President Trump is going to stick with the Affordable Care Act. He just wants to improve it. He says that he's tired of fighting to get it thrown out. He now just says, let's keep it and make it better. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think to his credit, he just, you know, I mean, it's just his nature, not just on healthcare, but if he sees something and he thinks it's not working the way it should, or is supposed to be, or is intended, then he wants to fix it so that it does. I mean, that's
Mhm.
just his mentality. So in this particular case, the subject is the Affordable Care Act. But, you know, as we all know, things can grow old and things can need change and all of that kind of thing. So,
Some
That
people would
doesn't
say that's
surprise
the
me.
case with Donald Trump, but I know you wouldn't say that.
No.
Just you see, so Arusha, see how we can laugh. We have different points of view, but so that's one of the questions I want to ask you. I mean, we genuinely like each other. I like Jeffrey; he's a great guy,
And
and
back at you, Joyce.
even though he's way over there in Camp Hill, it's but what was the atmosphere like? Was there a sense that we're all Americans and we're laughing? We disagree. We know that we agree the same problems. We disagree on how to solve them, perhaps. But was there that sense of camaraderie of just enjoying the moment, or was there this tension?
Well, I feel like it depended on some of the questions. Like some questions you could sense a little tension, especially if it was like controversial for one side or the other. But I would say like altogether, it was definitely a very supportive environment, especially since the senators and governors and all these different government officials were willing to talk with the journalists about their points of views and be professional about it rather than like yelling or just going out against the journalists or what they were asking for. So I would say that it was definitely like we were all Americans in this place
Oh,
instead of divided.
that's great to hear. That's
Yeah.
really
Joyce, I mean, and I've been in my share of spin rooms, and it really is exciting, and it's interesting to see. And what is so striking is that everybody, and I do mean everybody, they're involved in one of two things. They're involved in getting the story, whatever that may be, or they're involved in presenting the story of the candidate
right.
involved. And what I would see is there some figure, a congressman, a governor, or whatever, would be wandering around, and there would be somebody right behind him or her with a sign that would say the name of the presidential candidate on
Ah,
it, so that the journalist in the room knew, go there to
sure.
talk to whomever. And
Right.
it is very interesting. I mean, when I looked at the television pictures of the spin room, I thought, yep, that's it. I remember
That's
that.
it. Yep, yeah. So Arushi, a few other things we just want to touch base with you about. So when you were, what was there anything surprising, anything you didn't expect, or anything someone said that you didn't expect?
Well, something I didn't expect was Donald Trump coming into the spin room. I was definitely surprised because I didn't think either of the presidential nominees would come in. But I would say like I liked how there were both Democrats and Republicans present in this, so I could get both perspectives on the nominees and the policies happening, just to get a better understanding of what both of the presidential nominees are going to be doing. And it was very interesting to hear these like diverse perspectives. Like, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, you know how Jeffrey and I feel, right? Jeffrey, he thinks Trump held his own, right? And I think Kamala came on like, really just she did what she needed to do, right? That's what I mean, I just think that. What was the sense in the room? What was the sense amongst the people that you were around? Did you get a sense that they actually thought someone had won and someone had lost, or what?
So in the room, there were very mixed opinions. You could obviously see some people thinking one candidate won and some people thinking the other candidate won. But there was like a consensus that both candidates were trying to get away from the questions being asked. And it seemed like they had these like points already in their like since they prepared for the debate, obviously, they had these points that they wanted to say to baffle each other up. So
Yeah.
it was obvious that there was like some getting away from the question, which prevented us from getting clear answers about certain topics that we wanted to hear about. So I think like all the like not all, but like most journalists were thinking that
Okay.
that I talked to.
All right. So it was mixed viewpoints, and they just think that they could. Do you think they could have done a better job of the journalist, the two who were actually doing the question? Could they have done a better job of holding their feet to the fire?
I feel like it's a very difficult job. I mean, especially since both candidates obviously want to talk and explain themselves. So I feel like they did good for trying to hold their ground because I know it's very difficult, especially in that room when you're getting watched by like millions and millions of people and just having to ensure that it's equal for both sides, like that's very difficult. And I felt like they did try to do that.
And the
Joyce,
candidates don't cooperate, Jeffrey. They're always trying to hog
Yeah.
the line.
Joyce, I will say this. I have been reading coverage from conservative outlets, et cetera, and ABC and the two anchors in particular are getting pounded as being, they would question Trump on this, but they wouldn't question her and all this kind of thing. I just got through looking at a list of 21 things that they didn't do and all that, but they did it for Trump and all this kind of thing. So, I just think we have reached a point where we really do have a left-leaning bias in most of the press. I think, frankly, that's what began to develop the opposition through people like Rush Limbaugh and all that sort of thing. And now it's become very, very out there and hardened, if you will. And so, you get
It could be
Newsmax
argued.
and Fox and
It
all
could
that
be
kind of.
argued that the reason that is because that's where the truth lies, as opposed to where lies lie. I mean, that is the argument that the press goes with where the truth is, and if
That's
that
right.
be more left leaning now, maybe that's why. Because that, but I don't know. Aarushi, you tell us as you were looking at this whole sense. Did you get a sense that it was fair, or that they weren't? That they really slanted one way or the other?
Well, I mean, I remain neutral for these topics.
Good
So
thinking.
sorry.
Good
Good
thinking.
thinking, she says. Yeah, that's right. For a journalist, right? Because see, I'm an opinion editor, so I can express it. But you're coming in as a journalist, so you really do have to guard your heart, so to speak. Yeah. So you're thinking that they were able to balance it, or you would have questioned they should have dug a little bit more deeper into Kamala's side or not? Did you get a sense they were favoring one side?
Well, I actually I heard very different perspectives from people. Like some people said they were favoring Kamala Harris, but then I also heard some people say they were favoring Trump. And so it was very mixed opinions that I've been hearing about these perspectives. So I'm not like 100% sure on this topic, especially since I was just hearing like very different opinions from both sides. So it was like unable to like figure out.
I hear you. But Jeffrey, that's why it's good to have fresh perspectives come in, right? The younger
Well,
she's coming in.
and I'll give you one last historical anecdote. Let me just turn around here and pull this out so that you and I can see it. That book.
I have that book. Yes. Yes.
That book, The Making of the President, 1960, was written about the presidential campaign between Senator John F. Kennedy, the Democrat, and Vice President Richard Nixon, the Republican. And it was the first book of its kind to go behind the scenes and all of that kind of thing. And one of the passages in here, I won't dig it out here, but I can summarize it, is that Theodore H. White, whom I was very privileged to get to meet and have dinner with and hang out with him at some point years later in the Reagan era. Well, he talks about the press in the day that was covering John F. Kennedy, and they would be on a campaign bus or a campaign plane. And he talks about how they'd be going through the night and they'd be singing all these anti-Nixon songs. Now, this is the press, mind you. They'd be singing all these anti-Nixon songs, et cetera. And the phrase he uses, they all felt like they were soldiers on their way to the new frontier being JFK's program, as it were. And my point is, that's 1960. Not to put too fine a point on it, but I was 9 years old. And so this kind of thing has been going on for a very, very, very long time.
And yet, having worked on both sides of the aisle as a journalist as well as in politics, I can tell you it's nobody's fault but yours if you can't manage the media. You need to do it if you're going to be a political force. So with that, I'm going to say thank you, Aarushi, for being a part of this. As you well see here, we've got some historic wisdom here that I think would benefit you as you step into your career. Thank you for showing the initiative to get your press credentials and to go there and be there, because I truly believe, and I know Jeffrey may disagree, but I believe this will be a moment we will remember in history. So with that, I will say goodbye and thank you to all of our listeners and viewers. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.